Hey everybody, what is going on? Welcome. It is a Wednesday edition here, Roto Grinders Daily Fantasy Fix Podcast. I'm your host Dan Bach, and today we've only get one half of the trio. Big T sleeping it in, living the Big T life, but Hoop 2410, Mr. Mike Petta joins us. Mike, you missed the last couple of shows, so it's good to be back. But this is the crazy holiday time of year where you've got kids around more than often. You've got, wives oftentimes getting their own break. So soon enough will be a return to normalcy here. So how are things going, Hoop?
Yeah, going well. The kids, the holidays, the wife, just ruined the flow for us here on the podcast. But we're back. We're back at it. And yeah, unfortunately, Tony needs his beauty rest. Hard to get that guy out of bed. So just you and I taking it down today.
Yep, but we will definitely help you out in your Wednesday night NBA lineups. That's what we're going to be doing here today on the show. Also, I'm going to touch up on a few things. We got a promo coming up, but I want to start out telling you the plan for SiriusXM, by the way, because I've kind of been holding off on announcing this. Not too different than we've done in years past, but again, we are excited to let you know we are coming back before tip-off, 6 to 7 Eastern time, starting on Monday. And this year, it's going to be me and Beer Makers Fan 5 days a week outside of, the occasional days off when things come up for us. But it'll be the two of us most nights, again, taking you right up until roster lock. It's hard for me to do this show and Beer to do this show and be super high volume players in DFS. But you know what? This is something that we've been willing to sacrifice for you. We're still out there, but the way it works is a lot less lineups. It's hard to really multi-enter with late news potentially breaking, but hopefully all those 3 entry max tournaments, you're going to see a lot of Beer Makers Fan and DB 730. But we're pumped for this. This is, I think, I'm losing track. At least year 3, I'd say, of doing this daily. And it's a really fun show and one that, a lot of people driving home have listened to. And again, you can get the SiriusXM app. You can stream it on your phone as well if you don't have a SiriusXM in your vehicle. So pretty much every vehicle has that little auxiliary to kind of put your Bluetooth through your stereo. So just another way for you to get access to us, and happy to see the Roto Grinders empire continue on the airwaves of SiriusXM 5 days a week. And then a new addition to us this year, and that's going to be a Wednesday night golf show. That's right. Kind of lobbied towards them and said, hey, DFS Golf is getting big and is only going to get bigger here in 2017. So you should be doing a show devoted to fantasy golf. And what a better night to do it than Wednesdays. So at 7 o'clock, as soon as we wrap up right before NBA roster lock, we're going to have David Barnett of the Tour Junkies, STL Cardinals. Of course, Justin will be hosting Roto Grinders Golf. I don't know if that's the name yet, but that's going to be the theme of it. And it's going to be daily fantasy golf for an hour from 7 to 8 on Wednesday nights. So as you kind of build your lineups, you can check that out. That's usually put up on demand as well. So if you don't catch it live, you should be able to catch it after the fact. And just more golf content, which I think is good because that sport is blown up. Hoop, you're a grinder. You do it all. Do you do golf? Do you play golf?
Yeah, it was funny. I was going to add on to your little thing there, and yeah, your boy Hoop is already starting his weekly golf donations. Week 1, right out of the gate, posted some games, and yeah, I'm a fish at golf. I just love it though. It's so much fun. Like I'm willing to take the loss on golf. Fun of it. It's super entertaining to me. You get the 4 days, and honestly, like, I do all the sports, you do as well. It's like there's nothing like a sweat going into like Sunday golf, like the last round of a tournament. You have a good team going, you're going to get like 8 to 10 hours of entertainment out of it. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, and the best thing is, too, you actually get like 2 legitimate sweats. You get the Friday sweats for the cut because you want your guys to make the cut. And then, of course, you get the Sunday tournament ends, going to get paid out, going to make some money type sweat. And that is just as enjoyable. And the thing about golf, too, that's so much fun. And again, if you haven't tried it this year, and you might say, well, just give it a try, is, again, you get the most bang for your buck in terms of fantasy sports with golf than you do anything else, because you're getting the entertainment value for potentially 4 days, and it's super easy to play. I don't know for sure this, but you got to think that maybe FanDuel is going to be adding golf sometime soon. The popularity of it is spiked enormously, and I think that they'd be foolish if they don't cross over and do that. But I feel fairly confident they'll probably end up offering it at some point during this season. But I really hope everybody gives it a try. We've got our own premium content here on Roto Grinders. We added the Tour Junkies and obviously their podcast we've carried for a while now, but we've got their expert platform as well, which you can buy if you just want to play a week and check that out and see what they have to say on that front. So we've got a lot of different avenues for you guys to get some content if you're not into it. But I promise you, it isn't I don't know. I love it too, and I feel like and maybe I'm a fish too. I don't prep for it the same way that I do other sports. I feel like you can listen to a couple of podcasts and read a couple of articles and set a competitive enough lineup, and you never know. And there's and the beautiful thing about it too, Hoop, is there's so many players to choose from that. Yeah, you'll have some chalky guys, but it's not like in football where you've got an underpriced guy who's going to be 50% owned some weeks. You never really have that in golf.
No. And then the other part I really like about it, for me, I'm a super, I stick to cash games for the most part, 50-50s, things like that. In golf, it's easy to get into the tournaments. It's super easy to build a lot of lineups. So in those small $4 tournaments, you can easily, without even running a script or anything, pump out 50 lineups in an hour. So that's one part that I like too, where I can hit different angles of it, and without the positional structures where all you need is just 6 golfers. You don't have to worry about a point guard, shooting guard, small forward. Just get 6 guys in there, you can pump it in. So it's a lot of fun.
And there's very little correlation. Now there will be some weeks where there's a lot of wind on a morning tee time, and then no wind in the afternoon, or vice versa. And in that side of things, you do have to read into correlation just a little bit. But for them, I'd say that's maybe, it was prevalent towards the end of last year, but I'd say maybe 1 out of every 4 or 5 tournaments that really matters. So you don't have that correlation that you have when building GPP lineups for NBA, for example, where you want a lot of players from the same game, hope it shoots out potentially. Certainly in NFL, where you've got, quarterback, wide receivers, you've got, again, running it back with somebody on the other team. Golf, it's kind of all independent. It doesn't matter if guys are in the same twosome or not. Yep. That doesn't really make them a better player. And I think that it's pretty cool in that fashion in terms of multi-entering things. And you said it really well too. We do have Lineup Builder available for it, and it's super easy to use. But if you're not a fan of that, if you'd like to just make it yourself, you can do it much quicker in golf than you can other things. Yeah. So excited the season starts again tomorrow. This first one, it's not an exhibition, but it's 30 golfers, no cut, literally the easiest course they'll play all season. So, just throw together a team to have some fun, see what you think. And then next week, when we've got cuts more involved, certainly a lot more strategy in my eyes when you've got to figure that, because the key is to get people who make the cut. So, so there you go. There's your golf for this year. New Year's passed us by. Hoop, do you have any DFS resolutions this year that you look at, starting over a new year? Is there anything that you feel you want or need to do differently this year in DFS?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm not a New Year's resolution person at all. I never make New Year's resolutions. I never even attempt it, because for the most part, you make them and then 2 or 3 weeks later, they're all down the drain. But for DFS, there was one angle that I wanted to hit a little bit harder this year, and that's game selection. I think that's one of the most underrated aspects of DFS. I think a lot of people get caught in a routine where they're getting in the same contest every day, and they're not really thinking about it, and they're just going through the motions and entering. But even as being a high volume player, it's very important to kind of reevaluate the games that you're getting in, your game selection routine. So that's one angle that I am going to be very cautious of to start the year. And it's important with, the rake and a lot of these contests going up. Some of these bigger double ups, I think, are, where you're seeing the 15% rake. It's nice to get in a contest where there's going to be 5,000 people in it in these double us, but a 15% rake, that game's hard to beat regardless of how good of a player you are. So for me, that's the one thing I'm going to hit for DFS to start the year. Just very cautious and very aware of the games that I'm entering on a daily basis.
Yeah, I remember CSU Ram a couple weekends ago when we were out in California, just busting your chops about your terrible game selection, just absolutely laying into you about it. So, you're right. And it's funny because I think some of the most profitable guys out there, a guy like Birdwings, for example, is
best at it, 100%. There's no doubt.
He is a nit when it comes down to game selection, but he's also one of the most profitable players, I think. I don't know for sure. I don't know anybody's profit loss, but for a long time, he has been able to be one of the top kind of cash game players. And that's a big reason why. I think one thing that I want to do a little bit too is, again, be more rate conscious. And I think this weekend's a perfect example of it too. Again, if you don't have our rate calculator, it's part of a Chrome extension, plugs right into FanDuel and DraftKings and will tell you what percentage the rake is for every tournament. I'm not sure if you saw it. There was some discussion on Twitter last week about the $1,500 NFL buy-in on DraftKings, about it being raked too high for a game of that buy-in. Because typically when you get to like four figures of a buy-in, the rake is, I think over 5% is kind of extreme. That's usually seems like a fair number. Where I don't know where it was last week, but I looked at the game this week. The $1,500 buy-in was raked at I think 11% on DraftKings.
Way too high. I mean, I know. Yeah, I saw the conversation on Twitter, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, let's get a group and protest it." But it's going to fill. I think it did fill. It did fill, and as long as those things are filling, that's that's the number that's going to kind of be set. And I'm with you. The standard has always been, with the 4-figure buy-ins, it's like 5 or 6% seems like a fair number, and it is, honestly, because you have some of the best players out there getting in these tournaments, and it's hard to beat if it gets closer to the double-digit number. But as long as the tournaments keep filling, that's a number that you can expect to see moving forward. So, got to take action with your money. That's all you can really do.
Yeah, just take a stand on those places, because the interesting thing I saw about it was this weekend, again, same setup, except they also have a $1,000. They have a $1,000 3-entry max tournament raked at half of what the $1,500 one is, and it's a 3-entry max. It's less money, and it's got lower rate than that $1,500 tournament. And that's a perfect example where if you're playing at that level, you got to be cognizant of these things, because it's clear as day which tournament you should be entering. Yeah. No questions asked.
Yeah. And people, everyone's guilty of it. You look at the big you look at the big number up top. When you see the big number up top's at 250,000 in this tournament, and then down here it's only at 50,000. People are going to say, I don't care about the rake. I'm going to go for this big top prize. But long term, that's definitely not the right move, unless you win it. I mean, unless you win it, then it's a different story. But long term, it's definitely not the right move.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that kind of progresses throughout the year, with potential merger on the horizon, maybe other competitors coming into the thing. And the last thing I want to talk about before we get to the slate here today, because this is something that you actually did on the Morning Wood Show a couple of weeks ago, where somebody was giving you flack in the chat. I believe it was Capone. And he said, okay, Capone, you want to play on Yahoo? Let's play a 1K, and I'll pay for the rake. So basically, I'll refund you $100 off of that entry. Send me your PayPal. We'll play heads up for $1,000, and basically, I'll cover it on my own end, the whole thing. What do we think about the possibility of players setting the rake at, as they post, to what they are willing to pay themselves to try and garner greater action?
I think that's a very interesting aspect. Yeah, and I think we need something innovative, something new with head-to-head games, because they become pretty stagnant and they're drying up for the most part. I mean, honestly, at the higher buy-in levels, the rake I think preventing a lot of people from playing there. I mean, people are seeing that it's unbeatable for two, smart players or sharp players to go ahead and go head to head and play each other. So the action's kind of drying up, and something like that would be interesting. I mean, and it could be day to day. If you think you have a super strong read on a slate and you love what you have and you love your approach and you love your lineup and you're willing to play somebody and cover most of the rake or pay most of the rake, like you're saying, that would be a very interesting dynamic. I think something like that definitely needs to happen for head-to-heads because it's, like I said, it's drying up and there's not a lot of people that are willing to play, other high-stakes players.
Yeah, and I think it would be really interesting, even if you wanted to do it in especially on a on a higher buy-in level, on a case-by-case basis. Say, okay, you put this game out there, I'll play you $100 head-to-head, I'll cover the rake on this, and then somebody accepts it, and it could be up to the person who offers it whether to say yes or no on it. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's the best way, because I guess in some form or fashion it could be kind of looked at as fishing, as trying to take advantage of players who don't have a reputation. But on the flip side, if you're cutting into your own edge, because you clearly are, you've got to figure out what level can I afford to pay rake. Because let's face it, even and it certainly depends on the sport, but on a given day, a new player can absolutely beat Sahil. He is not unbeatable. It happens all the time. In the long term, they're probably going to lose in that matchup. But on a given day, I think it would be interesting to see that sort of innovation or something along those lines where people can set their own prices for head-to-head games. Because when you offered that up, I was like, that's kind of interesting. I think that, more people might take chances if they looked at it and it was framed in a sense of where, instead of offering 100 to win, I guess it could be 100 to win 200 instead of 90 to win I don't know. I'd have to do the math. I'm kind of flaking out here on the fly, but you know what I'm saying here.
Yeah, so if you're going to play a 109 to win 200, you'll say that you'll play the 109 to win 195 or something. You'll take 195 if you win, something along those lines. I see what you're saying, and it definitely makes sense. And I hope with this merger, on the brink here, that some of these new innovative ideas kind of make their way to the front here. And
I actually think it can happen a lot faster on a merger. And I say that because again, the liquidity of the sites aren't doubled overnight. Don't let people fool you into thinking that happens. But it definitely is going to grow the entire pool. It's going to grow from FanDuel, if whatever they make it, let's say they make it FanKings. FanKings will be bigger than either FanDuel is or DraftKings is. Not going to be smaller. It's only going to be bigger. And the bigger number of people you have, the more you can kind of segment different ideas and try things, because you're less worried about necessarily eating into your, your market share or even taking away from one thing for another. Especially when you're kind of a top dog where they'd own so much of the market to begin with. So I think it's doable if some sort of thing goes through, and you can even call it a head-to-head marketplace if you wanted to, have it separate from just being you have your head-to-head lobby and then you have your head-to-head marketplace where people can set their own head-to-heads differently. I think it's a cool idea. I would really, and even on the flip side, you could have people out there, you can have newer people out there set their own price and say, okay, well, you're not just going to pay the rake, you're going to pay more if you lose to me. Be able to set their own price on the actual game. So let's say you look at it and you say, man, I can beat Dan easily. And I say, okay, well, if you want to beat me, let's play for $100. And if I win, you're paying me out 120, plus whatever rake is. And then if I lose, you'll win the 100. Yeah. So therefore, it's more is coming out of your pocket overall, not even just rake wise, but overall, because you think I can beat DB. I think that's a cool idea.
I like it. I mean, I like I said, I hope we get to that point where some of these ideas kind of make it down to the front here.
All right. Well, there we go. We're Free consulting for the new DFS sites. I hope they're listening and try to choose some innovation or go a little bit more innovative in some things. All right, let's get to the slate tonight, and I want to thank FanDuel, great sponsor tonight, and they are really putting it out there, boys and girls. Tonight, another $500,000 tournament. I believe they're doing it all week long with a $500,000 every single day at least. And tonight it's the NBA Clutch Encore $4 tournament, $100,000 up top with a $500K total prize pool. I don't know if they filled it yesterday, but they definitely raked it yesterday. So NBA continues to be a big thing over there on both sites. And of course, the new tournament for you mega high stakes players, the Behemoth, $10,500 buy-in. And it's already at 11 to 15. So they gotta pump that up a little bit. That's gonna fill.
Yeah, started running it like last week, I think 10 person, and it filled like in the morning. Like it wasn't even close. So they bumped it up to 15. And honestly, I think this thing could sell out every day with 30 people. I mean, you look at the rake under 5%, and I think that's a big number for a lot of people. It's a number that a lot of the high stakes people like seeing, so they're willing to take a chance against some of the top players here just because that rake number is so low.
Also, experienced players excluded tournaments as well this weekend. The NFL Huddle, they've got that at $3. So look for more and more of those tournaments as well on FanDuel. Thanks to them for being a sponsor here. All right, let's jump into this slate here, Hoop. We're going to go positional, and we'll start at the point guard spot. It's interesting. This is a very reminiscent slate of the one we had a couple of days ago. We were commenting before the show that it's interesting. The NBA this week has nice middle tier slates Monday through Friday, like like 6-7 games, which we love as people who analyze them because those 13 gamers are an absolute nightmare to kind of go through. So much can change on a moment's notice, and this is a little bit easier, I think, to grind. But a lot of the same value plays kind of coming to the forefront here today that we had 2 days ago, and we see some of it at the point guard spot. The top two on FanDuel that stand out: Malcolm Brogdon at 4,400, Michael Carter-Williams at 4,700. One note on Brogdon: he is like 53 over on DraftKings, so he's a lot more expensive there. On FanDuel, he's cheap enough, assuming Dellavedova is out. How do you rank those two guys? Give me your thoughts there on those values.
For me, it's Brogdon, and I know Carter-Williams is coming off the better game, but Brogdon, you look at the minutes, 33, 39, 32. He would have played more than 32, I believe it was last game that he got into foul trouble. So he only played 32 minutes. I think that number could have been, because he's guarding Westbrook most of the game. So he had 4 fouls early in the third quarter and still managed to get to the 32-minute marker. So I think, mid-30s is a fair expectation for him. But that doesn't make Carter-Williams a bad play. I think he's in play too. I mean, they're kind of giving him the point guard duties here. 31 minutes last game. Kind of does it all. What we're used to seeing: 10 points, 9 rebounds, only had 3 assists last game, but can contribute across the board. So both in play, and then you even have to take a look at these Clippers guys. If Chris Paul's out, which I believe is doubtful, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
doubtful to play. So the Clippers guys, Austin Rivers and even Raven Felton in play.
Yeah, on FanDuel, you've got Rivers cheaper than Felton. On DraftKings, it's vice versa. I'll say this much on Brogdon: I don't think I can pay 5.3 on DraftKings for him.
I'm not a fan of that price tag because you look at what you need on FanDuel at 4.4, we like 22, 20, 21, 22 is good enough on DraftKings. When you start getting up to 26, 27 fantasy points, doesn't seem like a big difference, but that 4 or 5 definitely can go a long way. So much better play on FanDuel than on DraftKings.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, Westbrook has been under 60 for a while now. He's at 11-8 today against Charlotte on the road. Should be a fine game for him to kind of get going. Should be able to fit him in your lineups if you want to as well. Looks like we're going to have a handful of value all around. A few other names to throw out here. And the guy I've got the biggest remorse about myself from yesterday, because I talked him up on the podcast, and then when it came down to making lineups, he just slipped my mind. And that's Darren Collison today at 4.5 against Miami. This is a guy who it didn't hurt that Ty Lawson was out yesterday, but minutes were 35, 2 games in a row. But the one thing that I talked about yesterday's podcast is the shot attempts. 16 shot attempts for him. That was the most he's had all season long. He repeated that again last night and gave us 38 fantasy points. And at just 4,500, I think the shiny objects are Brogdon and Michael Carter-Williams. But Collison, for cheaper than those guys, are pretty much the same price point as those guys. I got interest in him here as well today, especially if Lawson's out. I don't know if we'll have the news, but I might be able to risk it either way.
Yeah, so he's a guy that I looked at a lot this morning when I initially ran through everything, and as long as those guys are out, Lawson. What was wrong with Lawson yesterday?
He's like a facial and something wrong with his face. I don't know if it was an infection or what happened, but something with his face. He's out with a face.
With the face. So the face held him out. Sounds kind of serious. So maybe the face will hold him out again tonight. We'll see. But yeah, I like this price tag. You get a guy coming off a big game. No opportunity for them to raise the price. He's 4.5K, and that's what makes the point guard position so difficult today, because you have the guy at the top who's probably the top projected overall scorer in Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook. And he has a reasonable price too. So there's probably 5 or 6, I'd say 5 or 6 cheap guys that are playable today, like reasonably playable, like you're not making a stretch. And then you have Westbrook facing off with Kemba Walker, and Kemba Walker's been phenomenal too. So it's a tough position. I mean, it is very tough, and I'll just come down to roster construction here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're on DraftKings, you can play a lot of point guards today, and you probably should. On FanDuel, you're going to have choices to make. You mentioned Kemba. I like his price. I know Curry's been a role player, but the one thing you can say is Portland is just a gold matchup for him. 8,200. I mean, you're not playing him in your cash games, but if you're throwing GPP lineups, you're kind of crazy not to have a tiny bit of exposure to him. And then the Dragon, Goran Dragic, big game for him last night. Injuries galore, and he took advantage of it with a 40-burger at 7K tonight against Sacramento. He's absolutely kind of back in play today. So I think that pretty much covers where we're looking. I know it's a lot of names to throw out there. And that doesn't even bring in, I doubt Lillard plays today. I doubt Paul is out. And then the Cavs are really interesting because you got Kyrie Irving with the hamstring. You got LeBron with like food poisoning or something, or sickness, illness, whatever. I don't know. And then you also have Kevin Love, who did have food poisoning. They said he lost like 10 pounds. Yeah. Like, man, that's pretty good. Like losing 10 pounds, like that's all it takes. No, just kidding.
We got to get on his diet. Drop some of this drop some of this holiday weight real quick.
Exactly. So, I mean, that Cavs team is really up in the air. If one of those guys is out and the other ones are in, that's going to make an obvious play. I mean, if Kyrie does return, and imagine if LeBron and Love are out, that's kind of interesting there. And then we actually even had Jordan McRae as a really interesting value play a couple nights ago. I don't think we need to go there today with the value that we're seeing, even if Kyrie is out. But but imagine this. Imagine if Kyrie, Love, and LeBron are out. I don't think that's going to happen. But if it would, then you're looking at preseason basketball, and I think McRae was a stud. So just throwing that situation out there. All right, let's keep moving. We got shooting guard next here today, and we've got Giannis Antetokounmpo back up top. He clearly is a great play pretty much each and every night. With there's not a ton of super high end guys necessarily to pay up for. I think he'll be pretty popular. A little bit early for percentage owns, but at 10.5, I feel like I like him that much more than Batum at 7, 8, or 8K on DraftKings, and even McCollum. I know it's a pace-up game, and Golden State, he could go off, but the price I think on DraftKings really got bumped up. I think it's like 8.6 over there. The 8K on FanDuel is playable, but I still don't know if I want to go there. What are your thoughts?
I think he's one of the better tournament plays on the board here. The upside's massive. The blowout risk is super high as well, with the 16-point spread in Golden State. Likely, obviously he's only in play if Lillard's out. So, I think really interesting tournament play. And Antetokounmpo should be popular here at 10.5. That price is probably a little bit too cheap. Just super consistent. I mean, a reasonable floor of like what, like 42, 43 fantasy points if you get rid of like the outliers, foul trouble, or just complete bust. So yeah, I think people will spend up here on Antetokounmpo because it's a pretty weak position overall. I mean, you start going through some of these names and there's not a ton. I guess the Miami situation could derive some value if all those guys are out. Guys like Wayne Ellington, Magruder would become interesting, but we definitely need that information. Even Josh Richardson, he's up at 6K, but I think would still be playable if all those guys are out. So weaker position overall. Actually, Magruder's small forward eligible, so I take that back. But yeah, so not a ton at this position. Kind of need to wait on some injury news to really be able to nail down some value.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, come on, DraftKings, give Antetokounmpo at least one other position. I mean, in theory, you could give him 5. Just give him one other one. Make him point guard, shooting guard, or make him shooting guard, small forward, or point. If you really want to get cute, make him point guard, small forward. Yeah. But do something with him besides just leaving him at point guard. Because like over on DraftKings, like Jimmy Butler is very possibly the shooting guard play you want over there. Because you're right, it is really thin. The other guy I do like, though, Oladipo feels underpriced at 5.4 against Charlotte. I feel like can get to 30 fantasy points pretty easily. He got there last game. Should be competitive back and forth. So I like him a little bit. And then, Redick, Crawford, and Crabbe, those are kind of the value guys at the position. I think I'd probably rank him Crawford, Crabbe, Redick. I don't like JJ Redick. I know he can score, but I just don't feel like he can ever do enough in other categories. Yeah. Not that Jamal Crawford or Crabbe are really great at anything else either, but I don't know. It's just I don't play JJ Redick.
Yeah, for me, like Redick he's the play when Paul is healthy and Blake is out, where because he's not a guy that can kind of create on his own. He needs a solid point guard to get him the ball. So when I know the shots are going to be there because Blake's out, and then Paul's there to get him the ball, I like him a little bit more. But with Paul out, I think I prefer Crawford, and I agree with those 3. I think it's Crawford, Crabbe, and Redick.
All right, so let's move on to small forward here today, where we've got Carmelo Anthony, maybe the top price per dollar guy. I don't think Porzingis is going to go today. Coach said he's likely doubtful for today, and it was interesting to see a bunch of really sharp players play Carmelo Anthony a couple days ago. I wasn't on him, and it was fine. Like he finished just fine at the end of the day, but. Yeah. I was surprised to see him at ownership of like 30%, especially when he was kind of banged up. We weren't 100% sure he was going to go, but got it done. 7.5 today, even cheaper on DraftKings at 7,100. Yeah. Probably going to be a tough pass over on DK if Porzingis is out, and pretty playable on FanDuel too.
Yeah, I mean, another position I think that's, especially on FanDuel, where you have to play 2 of these guys, pretty weak overall. I mean, Butler could obviously become a good play if Dwayne Wade's up, but his price is up there at 9.3. Do you really want to pay 10K for Durant in what is another blowout situation? Probably not. So I think, he'll end up being popular. And then, the next problem is you have to pair him with one of these other guys, which looks to be disastrous at this point.
Yeah, because LeBron's not healthy. Like, who knows how many minutes? I mean, even when Love apparently he was sick before last game, and he played, but he only played like 25 minutes. So I really think they're going to scale back some minutes on these guys after that, heavy run they went on there for a while. And I tend to agree. Like, there's not a lot to love. The guy who stands out a little bit for me could be Aaron Gordon. He's starting to play better. He's 4,500. Last game, it's hard to play him in any sort of cash format, but the encouraging thing is 19 shots for him last game. Yeah. And boards and assists were right there, too. I mean, that was one of his better games of the season. But he's given you 24 or more in 3 of the last 4 games at 4,500. You'll take that. So he's a guy I got my eye on today, kind of in that middle tier. But you're right. I don't want to play 9-3 for Jimmy Butler. But it's also a situation where if you just play Butler and Melo, how much further ahead are you over the rest of the field? Yeah. Comparative to other positions. You know what I'm saying? Like the other small forwards are so much worse than the other point guards we potentially have, for example. So if you got off of Westbrook, you're not killing yourself because there's so many other good options. Yeah. But if you don't play those guys, then what are you stuck with? Michael Kidd-Gilchrist? Doug McDermott? I think there's a lot of questions on that front.
Yeah, the opportunity cost at small forward is virtually nothing.
Yeah.
Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, I think fine. He's another guy. Minutes were kind of down last game because he's guarding Jimmy Butler. That didn't work out so well, and he got into foul trouble. So I think he bounces back. He's fine. The Atlanta guys, I don't have much interest in. I know a lot of people are still playing Bazemore, but I don't see it. I mean, I need like 1 or 2 injuries on that team before I can really take a strong look at those guys. I like the Aaron Gordon play. Just a frustrating DFS play because you just don't know when those minutes are going to disappear, and it just makes no sense to me on that team. Not a very good team. He's a young player, super athletic, can do a lot of stuff on the court. Would just like to see those minutes stabilized. But yeah, you're really taking a shot here at the position if you're going to, go ahead and lock in one of these guys.
Let's move to power forward where, we'll see what happens on some of the injury front here. We obviously had James Johnson miss last game, and that inexplicably kind of put me on Derek Williams, which is just a freaking disaster. Never play that guy. There's a center who went off yesterday we'll get to in a minute. But also kind of keep your eye on Cody Zeller. He missed the last game, and we saw a little bit of an uptick, I think, for Marvin Williams and maybe Frank Kaminsky in the minutes department. Yeah. Mirotic was the other guy who was super highly owned by a lot of smart guys 2 days ago, and I don't know. I didn't really get it. I mean, I know they were missing a number of guys, and we expected the minutes to trend back up, and they didn't really. 27 is where he was at, and I mean, 21 fantasy points is good. It's not great. I guess at 4,300 you could go there, but again, another situation where I know it's blow up potential, but Draymond Green is just doing what he does. And at 7,900, that's a nice price, and even cheaper on DraftKings. I have really tough getting away from him at 75 on DraftKings today, but 79 on FanDuel's playable. Yeah,
the DraftKings price is very reasonable for him, even in a blowout situation, safe type play. Another weird position. I mean, on FanDuel, I mean, if you're going to spend up, even in that range, I mean, there's only one other guy to really consider, and it's Millsap. Kevin Love, I guess it depends on the situation with the Cavs. I mean, if LeBron or Kyrie out, obviously he becomes the guy to spend on. Jabari Parker's interesting. I think he's safe. It's a nice game to target there. It's like 214, 215 total, and basically a pick 'em. So getting exposure to the Bucks Knicks is a good spot. But yeah, there's a decent amount of cheap guys, but you're not going to feel super comfortable with them. You mentioned the Charlotte guys, Kaminsky and Marvin Williams. I still think Kaminsky probably over Marvin Williams.
Yeah, I think so too.
He's a better fantasy point producer. So yeah, Mirotic, the minutes did go up a few. That's probably mostly due to Dwayne Wade out. So I mean, if Wade's out, Rondo now out of the rotation. Probably a couple extra minutes for him. And then Aminu, I mean, low upside, but should play into the 30s in terms of minutes. And, he'll get you around 20 fantasy points, but he's not going to go bonkers. So, a few cheap options here, but nothing that stands out as like, I have to have this guy must play type situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think keep our eye on Gasol. Back end of a back-to-back, he had a little bit of an ankle injury. If they would sit him on this one, Zebo might be interesting at 5'8" today. And even James Johnson, it was very questionable for him yesterday. I think it was just like stomach flu or something like that. So if he draws the start with all those injuries and plays 30-plus minutes, at 5'8", I can play him for sure. On FanDuel or 5'9", wherever he's at. So keep your eye on that situation. Parker's all right. Yeah, like you mentioned, Parker's fine. Cantor, he's all right. Again, not really cash game play, but and our top price per point guy is Taj Gibson. I don't know if I agree with that, but it kind of just goes back to just getting a safe Draymond Green, 12. 8, 7, 2, and 1. It's pretty safe play, and we might not want to write off Kevin Love too. Got to check on that situation. All right, let's get to center here real quick. Where last night we had the Willie Reed experience, over 50 fantasy points for him, and it was a setup where he crossed my mind yesterday because I thought Whiteside's not traveling with the team, Johnson is out, Derek Williams is terrible. They literally have no other big bodies, none whatsoever. And I was like, man, I guess he's a good play, but it's Willie Reed. What is he really going to do? And sure enough, he went bonkers. Do we chase Willie Reed today against Sacramento? 4K on FanDuel, 3,900, I believe, on DraftKings.
If it's the same situation, all those guys are out and he's going to play 32 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine playing him. A lot more risk in this matchup, likely having to guard DeMarcus Cousins, who's probably the best big man in the NBA in terms of drawing fouls. So, there's much more risk in this situation. The thing's working in his favor. The price really didn't go up that much, and they could be extremely thin again. So it's a situation where you're going to have to monitor the injury news with this team. And, if all those guys are out, I don't mind it.
Yeah, 4K could be obviously solid value for you. For 900 more, you can get Joakim Noah. Normally, you might laugh at me, but his stats have been really good over the last week or so. Yeah. And I do think he gets a bump if Porzingis is out. I think we've seen that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, direct correlation. I mean, you look at the last two games, 29, 33 minutes, 39, 30 fantasy points. So I think he's a safe play. If Porzingis is out, the minutes will be there. And he's, truly a guy, for the most part, all he really needs is the minutes. He's a good fantasy point producer. So, yeah, if Porzingis is out, I think he's a great play there.
Having the flexibility on DraftKings is going to be fun today because you can get Cousins at power forward today. I mean, he should eat against Miami. I mean, he should absolutely dominate that matchup, dominate the glass, and I'll be shocked if he doesn't. So Andre Drummond a couple of days ago, as bad as he is and how much you hate him, you can even respect the game he put up against that Miami front court without Whiteside. So you got to imagine what Cousins is going to do. A name that I find a little bit interesting on DraftKings, and again, we've got the ability to play multiple centers. Could be Dwight Howard tonight against Orlando. Kind of a revenge game, this game in Orlando. He's been up and down, but I feel like this is a matchup he can take advantage of, and the price is pretty nice over there at 7,300. 77 on FanDuel, and you only got one center. Probably not, but I think he's playable on DK.
Yeah, that price, playable. On a side note, though, you'd be very proud of me. I actually rostered Andre Drummond on DraftKings last night.
And he paid off for you, too. He was good.
He got it done. 7-3. The price tag was nice. Bane's out. I had to go there. I was going to keep it a secret, but I heard the name, and I figured you'd be proud of me.
I am proud of you. Very good job, Mike. Good job.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, playable. Dwight, I wouldn't play him on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, I think he's playable there. Another guy that just kind of gets it done every night, like Steven Adams. It's a little bit more expensive, but 5.6K, and hasn't been under 20 fantasy points in what looks like, I don't know, like 15 games. A lot of games. I'm too many to count. He hasn't gone under like 21 fantasy points. So I think he's in play too.
And on DraftKings in particular, Vucevic against Atlanta, he's just too cheap over there at 6'3". He got it done the other night for me in my cash games on DraftKings, and I think the fact that he's producing is going to ensure he continues to get over 30 minutes, even though they're coming off the bench. That doesn't necessarily hurt him. I mean, You're oftentimes going against the second unit center rather than Dwight Howard here, for example. So that's more advantageous to Vucevic. So he's a guy to kind of keep your eye on, and probably not taking a shot on Henson or Hawes today on the cheap. I don't think we need to do that. So there we go. That's the rundown. That's the Wednesday night slate in DFS. Before we get out of here, two things I need to remind you of, and this one is new and exciting, so check it out. It's in our forums. We've got a new or something special that we're doing. It's called a RotoGrinders NBA Bounty Free Roll. So what we're doing is we got 5 bounties out there for a free roll on FanDuel tonight. The link is in the forums on RG, where if you are the highest scorer and you fit the bounty parameters, you're going to win $50. So here are our 5 bounties. We have the Senior Citizens Bounty, where every player on your roster has to be 30 years or older. We've got the Total Suckage Bounty, where the highest scoring lineup that has 4 players on their roster that score less than 10 fantasy points, but it can't be a 0. The Value Hunting Bounty, a highest scoring lineup that uses less than 50K of the 60K cap. and the No Shave Bounty, the highest scoring lineup of players that have facial hair in their FanDuel profile picture. And then the last one is the California Dreamin' Bounty. 8 of your 9 players must be from one of the 3 California teams playing. So you've got a lot of different situations, and you can actually qualify for multiple bounties as long as you fit the parameters of it. So I feel like I'm going to play the Senior Citizens Bounty because I never like to play old guys hoop. And here's a reason for me to play old guys, to try and win $50 from Cal. So that's what I want to do. I think I'm going to play that one.
Certainly some nice incentive right there.
And there's plenty of 30-year-old guys to throw out there. We'll have to dig up. Which one would you play if you were going to do one of those? Total Suckage, Value, Senior Citizens, No Shave, or California?
I'll go with the No Shave. I think that's funny because actually there is I mean, just looking at these pictures now, basically everyone, for the most part, has facial hair except you get to Cody Zeller. He's baby faced just like me, so I think that would be interesting.
There you go, and lots of good players there with facial hair too, so you can build some pretty awesome lineups. But that's fun. So check that out. RG Forums, free to play, and just giving away looks like $250 in different forms or fashions today. And also, we want to say thank you to our friends over at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans, great sponsor here of the podcast. And when it comes to big decisions, choosing a mortgage lender, that's a pretty important one. So it's important you pick someone who you can trust, has your interest in mind. And with Rocket Mortgage, you'll get a transparent online process that gives you the confidence to make that informed decision. Stop wasting time searching through stacks of old paperwork. With Rocket Mortgage, you can securely share your financial info and get the mortgage approval in minutes. You can even adjust the rate, length of the loan in real time to make sure you get the mortgage solution that's right for you. Whether you're looking to buy a home or refinance your current existing mortgage, you can lift that burden of getting a home loan with Rocket Mortgage. Skip the bank, skip the waiting, and go completely online. QuickenLoans.com/roto, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org, number 3030. All right, that's going to wrap us up for today, Hoop. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, if you guys have any feedback about anything we're talking about, we've got a comment section. You can also tweet at us at Dan_Bach, at Hoop2410. And we'll be back with tons of great content today all across our Roto Grinders platforms. For Mike, I'm Dan. Good luck this Tuesday or Wednesday, and we will see you.